Hello, my name is Jed Maslowski, and thank you for joining me in this lightning-fast lesson with Maz Income Planning Services. This is lesson number 1, average rate of return versus actual rate of return. How the average rate of return is misleading you. So just what is the average rate of return? In a nutshell, to calculate your average rate of return, you simply add all of your annual returns, both positive and negative, over a defined amount of years. Let's say 2 years. You then take that final figure and divide it by that same amount of years. Again, 2 years. This determines the average rate of return. Here's a very easy example. Suppose in year number 1 you get a 50% rate of return on your principal. The following year you get a negative 50% rate of return on your principal. The average rate of return is going to be 0%. But is that your actual rate of return? Let's dive a little deeper and use some additional numbers. We are still going to use a 50% rate of return for the first year and a negative 50% rate of return for the second year, but we are now going to start with an initial principal of $10,000. In the first year, you get a 50% rate of return, or $5,000. This gives you a total of $15,000. On the second year, you lose 50%, or half your principal. You now have $7,500 remaining, and you have an actual rate of return of negative 25%, for those 2 years. Armed with your new knowledge, let's take a quick quiz. I want to give you 2 scenarios and I want you to tell me which one you would prefer. In scenario A, you get a 50% rate of return the first year and a negative 25% rate of return on the second year. In scenario B, you get a 25% rate of return in the first year and a 0% rate of return in the second. It's important to note that in both scenarios, you get an average rate of return of 25% over the 2 years, or an average rate of return of 12.5% per year. So let's start with your same $10,000 principal. In scenario A, you get a 50% rate of return for a total of $15,000. In year 2, you lose 25% or $3,750. This leaves you with a total principal of $11,250. In other words, you received an actual rate of return of 12.5% over that 2-year period, or 6.25% per year, well short of the 2-year average rate of return of 25% we talked about earlier. In scenario B, we receive a 25% rate of return during the first year, giving you a total of $12,500. In year 2, you receive a 0% rate of return, which keeps your principal total at $12,500. Over your 2-year period, you received an actual rate of return of 25%, or 12.5% per year, exactly what the average indicated in our early example. So what just happened? It's simple. When negative returns are included with the average rate of return, the result becomes misleading and, quite frankly, worthless. Preventing losses should be your number 1 priority, and yes, there are a variety of very successful programs that do just this, allow you to participate in the good market years while preventing losses during the negative or bad market years. Remember that you always want to focus on the actual rate of return and not the average rate of return. This is critically important when it comes to your long-term savings in your retirement. By protecting your principal from losses, you can afford to accept a lower rate of return and still come out on top. In fact, this will be the subject of our next lesson, so stay tuned. I want to thank you for participating in my lightning-fast lesson, How the Average Rate of Return is Misleading You. Should you have any further questions, please don't hesitate to give me a call, 480-661-1005. Shoot me an email, jed@mazzips.com, or visit our website, www.mazzips.com.